as we are live on Spreaker and Wisdom App. I'm Alex Garrett. I hope this evening has been okay. I hope your commute home tonight has been okay. And my commute was riding the subway after a very traumatic day in New York City. As I said, keep in mind this is Easter week, and we hope that every Holy Week is indeed holy. But today on the N line was not the case in mid-rush hour. A gunman smoked out a subway car on the N line heading to Manhattan today. And as a Manhattanite, as a New York City resident for 30 years, as a commuter, of course it shook me and rattled me to the core. But what was the best way to honor the 29 injured? 10 shot, 29 injured. Thankfully, no deaths have been reported. What was the best way? Well, take a listen to this very special Garrett on the Go. And if you're listening on Wisdom, tell your friends that Wisdom is now on Android. I touch on that a little bit later. But yes, Wisdom is on the Android app. And this is a simulcast on Wisdom Talks and Spreaker, Alex Garrett Podcasting. And without further ado, this very special edition of Garrett on the Go. Hold on one second. I've got to get you it through the speakers here so everybody can hear it. Here we go. Tell me if this sounds good on Wisdom. Well, this is a very special Garrett on the Go. And we're right now on the N train, which if you are following the news, you know, at 8:30 this morning on a Manhattan-bound N train, a gunman filled one of these subway cars with smoke and gas canisters and started shooting. So I'm taking this ride on the N a little bit into Manhattan on behalf of the 28, now 29 injured that couldn't finish their commute to their destination, whether it be in downtown Brooklyn or Manhattan. It's a little weird and a little emotional to do it with the circumstances, but let me tell you that the fact that these trains ran fairly soon after the chaos, I mean a couple hour delay, but the MTA, the FDNY, the NYPD, who are still investigating this at-large gunman, are to be praised today. Our first responders sprung into action, and thank God that the gun that this shooter used locked up. And let me also say that every rider of the subway, no matter what line tonight, they are brave and they are courageous, they are heroic. They are why New York is resilient. And it's true, that is why New Yorkers are resilient. I went on to do about 6 minutes more, and I'm hoping that loads up. I'm not sure why it didn't, but we will fix that in a second. But they are, and so I did that ride today in honor of those injured because I felt the perspective I could have is as a podcaster, literally be on the line, finishing out maybe some of their rides. I did get off at 34th Street. And we are praying for those injured right now. We really are. It's emotional. It's sad. And by the way, as this interview kept going, as this little bit kept going from the subway, you heard laughter. You saw the massive crowds that were there. I mean, the subway was packed. And 10 hours later, people could have used Uber. They could have used many, many things besides the subway today. But no, the ridership continued on. They decided to keep going, and that's admirable. That should be praised. That should be honored. And that should be commended. Should it not? Because when you think about it, a lot of people would be in fear. But New Yorkers aren't afraid. I don't believe we're afraid. I don't believe we have a... I don't believe there is a... how do you say? And I'm pulling up from the moment. I don't believe there is a ounce of fear in us, especially having done the last 2 years of lockdown out of precaution, out of being feared, in being coaxed into fear by politicians. But anyway, I continue. The matter is, we could have all just started taking Ubers, and many probably did. And I don't know if you can hear me over this screeching end line, but this is part of Garrett on the Go. Is going to, well, not the scene at 36th, but going to a place of trauma, which is the end line tonight. But to the thousands of riders that have continued to ride the trains and were brave enough to take video of this morning, you are to be commended also. The fact is, you could have taken an Uber tonight or a Lyft, but you didn't. Where I'm at right now, the subway car is packed on the end line. Nearly 12 hours after chaos hit the subway line at 36th Street. And that is really good to see that people are not afraid, that we keep going, that we will keep riding these subways. No matter who tries to gun us down, no matter what chaos is trying to be had. These subways may be delayed right now, but these people are continuing their lives. And that is what makes New York, and why we will, even through a pandemic, even through lockdown, why we have survived to this very day. As a lifelong New Yorker, I know I'm talking to my phone on the subway, but I'm very passionate about this. I'm very thankful to have crutches also, because if something happened, I can scoot or I could fight. I mean, I don't know, but at least I can go fast on this rollerblade also. But I would work to help those in a crisis leave this subway car safely. We are all rattled tonight. We are a shaken city. Do you know the subway shovings have already added to this? Now this morning, could it be a breakthrough in security and safety in the subways? I don't know. I pray so on Garrett Podcasting. But beyond that, it's an eye-opener to know that things are not good when it comes to public safety. Now, we're blessed every time our commute is completed fully and safely. And thankfully, there have been no reported deaths yet. And we pray for those injured right now, trying to pull through. But this needs to be curbed. This bail reform might lead to this, or might get this guy out if they find him. And maybe, just maybe, on a city subway, I'm saying this, every good citizen should be able to carry. I'm not saying an AR-15. I'm saying something to protect themselves from this morning. These criminals have the guns because they know the good citizens won't have them. And what about matching it once and for all with good versus evil? You want to do good versus evil? You match good. You make sure they are able to get protection. And the good guys should be able to arm themselves. As I say that at Canal Street on the N line. I'm kind of smiling because I see that for many, life is moving on and rolling on. And that is part of the city's resilience. We roll on. We bounce back. We fill the subway cars again and continue our daily lives. That's why this feels like a very special Garrett on the go. Because I remember doing this from the subway during the beginning of pandemic when nobody was on these subway cars. On a virus we didn't see. Yet today, from what we saw, the footage, the smoke, the green oozing out of the car at 25th Street, some saw that. The Glock left on the ground, the fireworks left behind, the undetonated devices. This was something you saw. Yet this very night, 10 hours later, our subways are filled and people are commuting. They're not stopping. And that's what makes this city amazing. But we cannot let it totally burst the seams. We cannot let these things happen and say, well, we're going to bounce back. Preventable measures must be in place. And I don't know what Mayor Adams has to do. I don't know what Governor Hochul has to do. But it sure as hell is not worrying about the Buffalo Bills. It sure as hell is not worrying about the Buffalo Bills. Or throwing the first, or being at Yankee Stadium opening day. It's worrying about the citizens, the 8 million of us that do this ride day in and day out on every subway line. That's where the concern should be for. And so tighter laws, not being afraid to incarcerate criminals, hard criminals, that can make this kind of subway ride even safer, so that a city won't be on edge this evening as we head into nighttime here in New York City. I think I've talked enough on Wisdom. By the way, the Wisdom app, I did simulcast this. You should definitely check them out on Android now if you have it. I'm simulcasting on Spreaker and Wisdom. So don't be afraid to download it on Android. I encourage you to. That's another reason why I want to join on Wisdom. But another thing to say in New York City, life is rolling on. On this very end line, life is rolling on 10 hours later. And that's a plus. That's a major plus sign. I'm Alex Garrett. Garrett on the go. We'll talk to you very soon. God bless. On this end line that actually has some laughter. Have a great night. Well, it was kind of interesting to see and hear that laughter because of the trauma 10 hours earlier. And here's my other thought. As I listen to this, I have one more thought that I wanted to bring to the table on both Spreaker and Wisdom. And it's simply this. How many times can New York City use the resilience card until we cannot bounce back as easily? Meaning we can get everything up and running. But how many blows and hits to the head and shootings do we have to hear about and see footage of before truly scaring away everybody from the city? These crimes prevent people from coming back. And today, after this whole, and by the way, shout out to Citizen App for also being on top of this, but after this whole ordeal, do you really think people would want to come to the city? And it's chaos. We have a lieutenant governor who had to resign today after being arrested in the state. So, yes, I am very proud of the resiliency of our city once again through this tragedy and that we can roll along. But come on, we have to make this more attractive to come back to for not only tourists, but for city dwellers that left during the pandemic. We need to have incentive to come back. And incidents like today, shootings like today, are not incentives. They're not. They are deterrents. And yes, I love the city, but for a while there, my optimism broke. My optimism broke because this happened on a subway line that everybody uses. And if that's vulnerable, we are really in trouble. But at least knowing that the N line was utilized again and crowded again gave me some optimism back that yes, we can roll on. But the question is, how long? The question is, what is the end? What will they do to stop it in the now? Instead of this resiliency factor, this we will not let New Yorkers be terrorized, as Mayor Adams said. Well, if we're not going to let us be terrorized, let's work toward it once and for all for the betterment of the city and the state. Thank God people have not died from this today. Thank God that gun jammed up. Thank God for our first responders. Thank God that New York citizens are gritty, that we are a gritty citizenry. But let's make sure we're a little more protected and given the protection needed in a very perilous transportation situation. Have a great night on Wisdom and Spreaker. This has been Garrett on the Go special. We'll talk to you soon.